The moon goddess had a cruel sense of humor. Kiran stood among the other young wolves in the center of the midnight pack's courtyard, the silver glow of the full moon bathing their faces in pale light. Tonight was supposed to be the night of blessings, the night each wolf discovered their fated mate. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, of strong arms pulling her close, of a wolf whose eyes softened the way the moon goddess promised they would when destiny tied two souls together. But as the crowd shifted and hushed, her heart slammed against her ribs in a sick rhythm. She felt it, the pull, the electric current of the bond snapping into place. Her breath caught, and her eyes searched frantically until they landed on him, Damien, her alpha. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that shimmered under the moonlight. His aura pressed against everyone present, commanding silence and respect. The bond between them snapped tight, and her wolf whimpered in awe. Tears stung her eyes as relief and joy threatened to spill over. The moon goddess had not forgotten her. Even though she was an omega, the lowest rank in the pack, she had been gifted the alpha himself. Mine, she whispered, her lips trembling as her wolf pushed forward. But Damien's expression was not one of joy. His face hardened, his jaw tightening as his eyes darkened to onyx. The silence around them grew heavy, suffocating, and she felt it before she heard it, his rejection brewing like a storm. No, his voice cut through the night like a blade. Kiran froze. The world tilted beneath her feet. No, she repeated, her voice small, fragile. Damien's lips curled into something cruel, his voice loud enough for every wolf to hear. I reject you, Kiran. You are weak, pathetic, an omega with no worth. You are not fit to be my Luna, nor my mate. The courtyard erupted in gasps, whispers spreading like wildfire. Her knees nearly buckled as the words sliced through her soul. Pain seared in her chest, the mate bond twisting violently before shattering into shards that cut deeper than any blade. Her wolf howled inside her, clawing at the rejection, begging to be accepted. But Damien's rejection was final. Please, she choked, desperate, humiliated. Damien, you can't. I can, and I have. His voice was cold steel. You will never stand at my side. Leave this pack before dawn, or I will have you dragged out myself. The humiliation was unbearable. Wolves she had grown up with stared at her like she was dirt beneath their boots. Some snickered, others smirked with cruel delight. Even her own family stood silent, offering no comfort, no defense. Kiran's tears spilled freely now, streaking her cheeks. Her body trembled as she tried to hold herself upright. She wanted to scream, to rage, to beg the moon goddess to undo this cruel fate. But deep down, something shifted inside her. If he wanted her gone, she would go. If he thought she was weak, she would become strong. If he believed she was unworthy, she would make the entire world kneel when they spoke her name. Straightening her spine, she forced her shaking legs to carry her away from the courtyard. Every step felt like glass cutting into her feet, but she did not falter. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Behind her, Damien's voice echoed one last time. You are nothing, Kiran. You always will be. She didn't look back, but as the silver light of the moon followed her into the forest, a fire was born in her chest, a promise to herself, to her wolf, and to the moon goddess who had tied her fate so cruelly. One day, she would return, and when she did, Damien would regret the moment he let her go. The forest swallowed her that night, and with it, the girl she once was. Kiran remembered the cold ache in her chest as she stumbled beneath the trees, the bond tearing inside her like 1,000 shards of glass. She had left with nothing but the clothes on her back and the raw, hollow wound of rejection carved into her soul. But she also carried something else, the spark of defiance Damien had unknowingly ignited. For days she wandered, lost and starving, her wolf whimpering in pain. She could have given up. Many wolves who suffered rejection did. Some never rose again. But each night, as she lay under the stars, she whispered a vow to the moon goddess. I will never be powerless again. It was during one of those nights that fate shifted once more. A band of rogues had found her, circling like vultures around prey. Their eyes glinted with hunger, their snarls promising pain. Kiran, weak and trembling, had braced herself for the end. But when their leader lunged, something deep inside her snapped. Her wolf surged forward, not the frail creature she had known, but something fiercer, older. Silver light burst from her skin, throwing the rogues back like leaves in a storm. They scrambled away in fear, muttering words she didn't understand. Blessed, cursed, destiny. When the light faded, Kiran collapsed, but the fire inside her, no longer flickered, it blazed. That was the night she met Serafina, a witch exiled from her coven. Serafina had been watching, drawn by the strange surge of power. Instead of leaving Kiran to die, she offered her a hand. Your wolf isn't ordinary, the witch said with knowing eyes. Train with me, and you'll learn what you truly are. And so began her transformation. The years that followed were brutal. Serafina was merciless, pushing Kiran until her muscles burned and her lungs screamed. She learned to fight, to silence her fear, to read the patterns of magic woven through the world. She learned to run with wolves stronger than herself, to wield the silver fire that lived within her, to heal from wounds that should have broken her. Every scar became a lesson, every failure fuel. Gone was the timid Omega who cowered under cruel laughter. In her place grew a warrior, cloaked in quiet strength, her presence commanding respect without a word. Still, the wound of rejection lingered. Some nights, when the moon was high, she would close her eyes and feel the phantom bond ache in her chest. Damien's voice haunted her, echoing the words, "You are nothing." But then she would remember the rogues who fled from her, the power in her veins, and the promise she had made. She was not nothing. She was more than he ever deserved. By the fifth year, her reflection was unrecognizable. Her once too thin frame was strong, honed. Her eyes glowed with silver when her wolf stirred. Her aura thrummed with quiet dominance that unsettled even alphas, and though she didn't know it, whispers of her had begun to spread. Stories of a silver wolf who walked like flame and shadow reached ears far beyond the borders of her old pack. Some dismissed it as myth, others feared it. But one man, one Lycan King, listened closely. Norman, king of Lycans, ruler of the Silver Claw Kingdom, felt a stirring the first time he heard the tales. His wolf prowled restlessly, growling with hunger. He did not know her name, only the whispers of her strength. But his instincts told him she was meant for him, and fate, as always, was already weaving their paths together. Kiran did not yet know the world she was walking back into. She only knew one thing: the time had come to face the ghosts she left behind. She was no longer the broken Omega. She was the storm that would make her ex-mate regret ever letting her go. The Midnight Pack hadn't changed. Kiran stood at the edge of the familiar territory, the scent of pine and river water tugging at memories she thought she'd buried. The pack house loomed in the distance, proud and imposing, its banners fluttering. In the evening breeze, wolves moved about their duties, voices carrying across the grounds, unaware of the storm that approached. For 5 years she had stayed away. For 5 years they had believed her gone, forgotten, broken. But tonight, under the rising moon, she walked back into the place that had cast her out. Her wolf stirred within her, a steady growl rumbling low. They will see us now. She adjusted the cloak around her shoulders, its dark fabric trimmed with silver thread that shimmered faintly when she moved. Every step she took was measured, her chin lifted, her aura held close but impossible to ignore. The first wolf to see her froze in place, eyes widening. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. A second wolf joined him, then a third, and soon whispers began to ripple through the air like wind before a storm. Is that? It can't be. She looks different. Kiran didn't flinch. Their stares slid off her like water. At the packhouse entrance, a familiar figure appeared, his presence commanding silence. Alpha Damien. He looked much the same: dark hair, broad shoulders, that same aura of dominance that had once pressed her into submission. But now, when their eyes met, the balance had shifted. She didn't bow. She didn't tremble. His expression faltered, just for a second. Then his jaw tightened, and he stepped forward. Kiran. His voice was a mix of disbelief and something else, something almost raw. You came back." The courtyard went still. Every wolf strained to hear. Kiran's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, though it never reached her eyes. "Surprised to see me alive?" Murmurs rippled. Again, louder this time. Damien's gaze swept over her, lingering too long, as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with the girl he had cast aside. "You're different," he said quietly, but the words carried stronger. She corrected. His throat bobbed as he swallowed, a flicker of regret flashing in his eyes. For a brief moment, the mighty Alpha looked unsettled, almost vulnerable. But then his shoulders squared, his pride clawing back. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. Though his voice lacked the iron it once had, Kiran tilted her head. "Why?" "Afraid your pack will see that your rejected mate survived without you? Thrived without you?" Gasps echoed around them, wolves whispering furiously. Never had anyone spoken to the alpha like this. Damien's nostrils flared, but before he could respond, another sound cut through the tension, the low growl of engines, the scent of authority that made every wolf stiffen, a convoy of sleek black cars rolled up the dirt path, their presence commanding instant attention. The air grew heavier, charged, and even Damien's expression shifted to unease. The doors opened, and from the first car stepped a man whose aura dwarfed even the alphas. His presence was magnetic, dangerous, impossible to ignore. His eyes, sharp and golden, swept the crowd before locking onto Kiran, the Lycan King. Time seemed to still as his gaze lingered on her, his wolf pushing forward with a hunger that resonated through the air. His lips curved in the barest smirk, as though he had finally found what he'd been searching for. Damien stiffened beside her, his jaw clenched tight. The king's voice rumbled low, rich, and possessive. "So, this is where you've been. Hiding." Every wolf bowed instinctively, but Kiran remained standing, her cloak fluttering in the breeze. Her wolf surged inside her chest, recognition sparking in the silence. For the first time since her rejection, Kiran's heart skipped not with pain, but with something she couldn't yet name. And Damien, watching the king's eyes on her, knew in that moment that his biggest mistake had come back to destroy him. The air was heavy with silence. Every wolf in the courtyard was bent on one knee, their heads bowed in instinctive submission to the king's overwhelming aura. Everyone, except Kiran. She stood tall, her silver-threaded cloak swaying, her eyes locked with the Lycan King's as though she was his equal. No one dared to speak, though the whispers of disbelief ran like fire beneath their silence. The king's golden gaze lingered on her, searing, unrelenting. His wolf pressed against hers, testing, searching, claiming without a single word spoken. Damien shifted uneasily at her side, the pride of his alpha position eroded by the king's very presence. His jaw clenched, but his voice carried as he forced himself to stand straighter. "Your Majesty," Damien began, trying to regain control of the moment. "What brings the King of Lycans to the lands of the Midnight Pack?" The king didn't spare him a glance. His attention was fixed on Kiran as though nothing else in the world existed. When he finally spoke, his words were low, rich, and deliberate. "I came for many reasons," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "But it seems I've found the most important one." Kiran's heart stuttered in her chest, though her face remained composed. Around them, wolves gasped, exchanging glances filled with awe and confusion. Damien's aura flared hot with possessive anger. "She is a member of my pack." Finally, the king's gaze flicked toward him, sharp, dismissive, dangerous. "She was," he corrected, his tone edged with authority that brooked no argument. "But the moment you cast her out, she ceased to be yours." His lips curved slightly, predatory. "Now, she is mine." The declaration landed like thunder. Kiran's breath caught, her wolf stirring with a strange mixture of defiance and something else, recognition, desire, destiny. Yet she wasn't about to let herself be claimed like some prize. Her chin lifted, her voice steady. "I belong to no one." The pack gasped again, some recoiling in shock, others staring at her with new awe. To defy the king openly was unthinkable, but instead of anger, the king's expression deepened into something darker, something almost amused. His golden eyes glinted, his wolf rumbling just beneath his words. "Not yet," he said softly, dangerously. Damien stepped forward, desperate now, his voice cutting sharp. "You can't have her. She is my mate. You rejected her." The king's words sliced through, silencing him instantly. "You cast her out in front of your pack, humiliated her, stripped her of everything the moon goddess gifted her. And now, you would claim her again because you see what she has become." His lip curled, disdain dripping from every syllable. "Pathetic." Damien flinched, his pride wounded, but his eyes darted back to Kiran with a flash of desperation. "Kiran, I was wrong. I see it now. You were always meant to stand beside me." For a moment, the world seemed to fall silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. All eyes turned to her. Kiran's heart twisted. 5 years ago, she would have given everything to hear those words. She had begged for them, wept for them. But now, standing under the burning gaze of the king and the desperate grip of her ex-mate's regret, she felt only cold clarity. Her voice cut through the silence, calm and sharp as a blade. "You had your chance, Damien. You threw me away." The alpha's face drained of color, his wolf snarling behind his eyes, but before he could respond, the king stepped closer. His presence surrounded her, not suffocating but consuming, like fire demanding to be fed. His hand reached out, brushing against hers, just briefly a touch that sent her wolf surging, her body thrumming with awareness. The bond wasn't the same as the one she had lost, but it was something else entirely, dangerous, magnetic, inevitable. The king leaned closer, his voice pitched low for her ears alone, though every wolf strained to hear. You can deny me all you want, little wolf, he murmured, his breath warm against her skin. But you feel it. You belong with me. Her heart pounded, torn between fury and desire, between the scars of the past and the pull of something she had never known. And as the king's words lingered in the night air, Kiran realized one truth: her return was no longer just about revenge. It was about a choice that could shatter the packs, a choice that could change the fate of the wolves forever. The pack couldn't stop whispering. For days after the Lycan King's arrival, the midnight grounds buzzed with rumors. Some wolves whispered in awe of Kiran's transformation, others in fear of the king's open interest in her, and a few in bitter jealousy that the Omega they had scorned now stood at the center of two of the most powerful men alive. Kiran ignored the whispers. Or at least she tried. Every step she took through the pack house felt like walking through fire, every pair of eyes searing into her back. But she held her head high, her aura calm yet unshakable. She had survived exile, rejection, and the cruelty of her own blood. She would not falter now. Still, her wolf was restless. The bond she once shared with Damien, broken and scarred though it was, lingered in the background of her thoughts. And then there was the Lycan King. His presence followed her like a shadow, his golden eyes burning into her whenever he was near. She hated how her body reacted to him. The quickened pulse, the warmth that spread through her skin at the mere sound of his voice. She told herself it was his power, his dominance pressing against her. But deep down, she knew it was something more dangerous. That morning, Damien sought her out. She had stepped into the training grounds, eager to stretch her limbs, when his scent reached her before his voice. Strong, sharp, familiar. She turned slowly, meeting the storm in his eyes. Kiran, he said, softer than she had expected. Not the commanding tone of an alpha, but something rawer, edged with regret. She crossed her arms. Alpha? He flinched at the title, at the distance it created, but pressed forward. Don't call me that. Not you. Why not? Her voice was cool, steady. That's all I ever was to you, just another Omega under your command. Disposable. His jaw tightened. I was wrong. Her laugh was sharp, without humor. Wrong, I was blind, he admitted, stepping closer. I thought strength only meant power, dominance, bloodlines. But when I saw you standing there, unbowed before the king himself, his voice faltered, his eyes searching hers. The moon goddess gave me a gift, and I threw it away. I see that now. I want to make it right. Her chest tightened against her will, the echo of their broken bond tugging painfully. A part of her wolf whimpered, remembering what could have been. But she forced the ache down. You don't get to decide that now, Damien, she said coldly. You had your chance. Before he could reply, the air shifted heavier, darker, threaded with dominance that pressed against every wolf instinct. The Lycan King. His footsteps were deliberate as he entered the training grounds, his golden gaze flicking between them before settling on Kiran. She felt it instantly, the pull, the hunger that coiled low in her stomach, the way his wolf brushed against hers like a possessive caress. Am I interrupting? His voice was smooth, dangerous. In its casualness, Damien stiffened beside her. We were talking. The king's smirk was slight, but sharp enough to cut. And yet, she doesn't look like she wants your company. Kiran bristled, heat rising in her cheeks. I don't need either of you speaking for me. The king's eyes softened, just barely. Then speak, little wolf. Do you want him here? All eyes turned to her. Damien's filled with desperate hope, the king's with quiet certainty. The weight of their stares pressed against her chest, but Kiran straightened, her voice steady. I want both of you to stop deciding my life for me, she said firmly. I am not a prize to be fought over. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, to her surprise, the king chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that sent shivers through her. Good, he said, because I don't fight for prizes. I claim what's mine. His eyes burned into hers, and her wolf surged in response. Damien growled low, stepping forward, his aura flaring. She's not yours. The king's golden gaze flicked to him, lethal. And she is no longer yours. The tension crackled like lightning, the two males' dominance crashing against each other, shaking the air. Kiran felt it pressing against her, suffocating, but she refused to cower. Her wolf rose inside her, silver light flickering in her eyes as she snapped, "Enough." Both men froze, their auras recoiling as her power rippled outward, silencing the grounds. Wolves watching from the sidelines gasped in stunned awe. Her breath came heavy, but her voice was sharp. "I don't care what either of you want. My choice is mine to make, and I'll make it when I'm ready." Her words hung in the air like steel, and for the first time, both Alpha and King said nothing, because in that moment, it was clear Kiran was no longer the Omega caught between two powerful wolves. She was the one they would have to fight to earn. The Lycan King's presence was like a storm pressing down on the clearing. His aura rolled over the pack like a tidal wave, forcing every wolf to bow their heads in submission. Even the Alpha, my ex-mate, who once thought himself untouchable, lowered his gaze, and me? I stood frozen. Those piercing silver eyes pinned me in place as if I were the only one who mattered in this moment. "Kiran," his voice carried, smooth but edged with command. "You will come with me." Gasps rippled through the gathered wolves. The Lycan King didn't make requests. He claimed. My ex-mate bristled, stepping forward, his jaw tight with barely contained fury. "She is my mate." The king's lips curved into something between a smile and a snarl. "No, Alpha, you rejected her, and you made it public. That bond is severed. She stands unclaimed, which means..." His gaze lingered on me with a hunger that made my pulse race. "She is free for me to claim." My heart hammered so violently I thought everyone could hear it. Free. The word twisted in my chest. For years, I'd prayed to the moon goddess for freedom from the chains of that cruel rejection, but never once did I imagine it would come in the form of the most feared ruler in all the realms. The Alpha growled, his eyes darkening. "You can't just walk in here and take what is mine." A dangerous silence followed. The king tilted his head, and in an instant, the tension snapped like a whip. His aura flared, crushing the Alpha to his knees. Gasps and whimpers echoed around us as the pack bent under the weight of the Lycan's dominance. "She was never yours," the king said softly, but his voice was more lethal than a roar. "You threw her away like nothing. That mistake is the only reason you still draw breath." My breath caught. He was defending me. No one had ever done that before, not once in my life. The Alpha's fists dug into the soil as he struggled to breathe under the pressure. "I'll fight you for her." The Lycan's eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "You wouldn't survive." Then slowly, he turned back to me, and the weight of the entire world seemed to rest in his gaze. "Kiran, come to me." Every instinct screamed at me to move, but my feet were rooted to the earth. Part of me wanted to run, to hide from this sudden shift in my fate. Another part, wild, rebellious, aching, longed to step forward. I heard the whispers of the pack around me. "She doesn't deserve him. She's just an Omega. Why would the Lycan King want her?" But then I remembered the years I'd survived alone, the strength I had carved out of suffering, the power I had nurtured in silence. I wasn't the weak girl they had cast out. I lifted my chin, meeting his silver eyes. "Why me?" The crowd hushed. No one ever questioned the Lycan King. His expression softened, just barely. "Because you're mine." The words slammed into me with terrifying certainty. Heat coiled low in my belly, not just from his dominance but from the way his voice caressed that single word, mine. The Alpha snarled from where he knelt. "She's nothing but silence." The king thundered, and the sound shook the trees. "Say another word against her, and you will not live to regret it." The pack cowered, and even the Alpha fell silent. The king extended a hand toward me. My pulse raced as I stared at it, torn between fear and something dangerously close to longing. Step by step, as if my body moved on instinct rather than choice, I crossed the space between us. His scent-rich pine and smoke wrapped around me, making my knees weak. When my hand slid into his, a jolt shot through me, different from the mate bond I'd once known. Wilder, fiercer. It burned, but it didn't destroy. The king's lips curved in satisfaction. "Good girl." A shiver ran down my spine, heat licking across my skin at the quiet praise. He turned, pulling me gently but firmly against his side, and faced the pack. "Hear me well. From this day forward, Kiran is under my protection. Harm her, insult her, even look at her with disrespect, and you answer to me." Gasps echoed again, but no one dared protest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. Standing beside him, I felt untouchable. As he led me away, the pack stares burning into my back. My ex-mate's broken whisper followed me. Kiran, please, don't go. I froze. For just a heartbeat, the old pain twisted inside me. The man who had destroyed me now begged for me, but then the king's hand tightened around mine, steady and sure, grounding me in a way no one else ever had. And I realized with startling clarity I was no longer that girl begging for scraps of love. I was something more, and maybe, just maybe, I was his. The walls of the Silver Claw Palace were cold, imposing, and impossibly beautiful. Marble floors reflected the moonlight streaming through the tall windows, and ornate silver carvings of ancient lichens adorned every hallway. I followed the king through the corridors, my hands still in his. Every step sent shivers through me, not from the chill of the stone, but from the heat coiling low in my belly whenever I felt his touch. He didn't speak at first. His presence alone was enough. A living weight that made the air around us heavier. Even though I had survived 5 years of exile, every instinct told me to tremble, to submit. But I didn't, not anymore. Finally, he led me into a private chamber at the top of the palace. The room was warm, lit by flickering torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. A large window opened onto the grounds below, moonlight spilling. Across the polished floor, he released my hand, letting his fingers brush mine just long enough to remind me that he could claim me at any moment. You are tense, he observed, voice low, rumbling like distant thunder. I swallowed, trying to steady my racing heart. This is all, a lot. He stepped closer, and my wolf stirred instinctively, brushing against him as though drawn by some invisible tether. I am aware, he murmured, but you are safe. Here. No one can hurt you. Not him. Not anyone. Yet I feel trapped, I admitted, surprising even myself. Like I'm standing in a storm I can't control. The king's lips curved. Faintly, control is an illusion, but strength is yours. You've survived exile, humiliation, pain. That makes you stronger than most wolves alive. And yet, he tilted his head, gaze piercing. You are still afraid. I looked away, feeling the heat of his scrutiny. I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. Not him. Not anyone who claims me. Even you. Even me? His voice softened, almost tender. Yes, I whispered. Because I've been broken before. I don't want that again. He stepped closer, his aura pressing against mine, warming. Heavy, protective. I will not break you. That is not my way. You are mine, Kiran. Not because I demand it, but because my wolf and I recognize what is true. And the bond we share is unlike anything you've ever felt. A shiver ran down my spine, a mixture of fear and desire. My wolf whimpered softly, brushing against his in acknowledgement. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering near my jaw. The simple touch made my skin flush, my heart pound, and yet, I did not move away. You will learn to trust me, he said, voice a soft growl that vibrated through me. Not today, not tomorrow, but in time. You will see that nothing you feared will touch you while I am here. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of my past lift just a fraction. The broken Omega who had fled humiliation was gone. I was standing here, under the gaze of the most powerful Lycan alive, and I was not afraid to face him. Can I trust that? I whispered. He bent closer, and the scent of him smoke, pine, and something primal filled my senses. You already do, he murmured, voice rough with unspoken desire. His lips brushed my temple, a whisper of acclaim, not violent but possessive. My breath caught. My wolf growled softly inside, curious, eager, alive. I wasn't sure if I should step back or lean in. Part of me wanted to resist, to cling to the armor I had built over 5 years. Another part, wilder, freer, wanted to surrender to the pull that his presence demanded. The king stepped back, giving me a fraction of space. But the aura he left behind pressed against me still, heavy and intoxicating. We will take this slowly, he said. I claim you in word and wolf, Kiran. Your heart, that is yours to give. But make no mistake, I will wait, and I will protect. And no one, least of all your alpha, will have you while I draw breath. I shivered, the mixture of fear, awe, and desire tangling inside me. I wanted to speak, to say something clever or defiant, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I nodded slightly, a silent promise, and in that quiet moment, I felt the first tendrils of something I had not felt in years, belonging, not to the alpha who had thrown me away, not to the pack that had looked down on me, but to someone who saw me for what I truly was and who would not let me be broken again. The slow burn had begun. Damien paced the edge of the courtyard, fists clenched, jaw tight. Every wolf who dared glance at him could see the storm building. Beneath his calm facade, he had believed himself untouchable alpha, fated mate, ruler of the Midnight Pack. And yet, here he stood, watching Kiran walk beside the Lycan King as if nothing from their past had ever mattered. He couldn't breathe. He had spent 5 years drowning in regret, imagining what he had lost. Now, seeing her alive, powerful, untouchable, the weight of his mistake pressed down like a mountain. Every instinct screamed to claim her, to pull her back under his protection, even if it meant tearing the king apart. Kiran, he whispered to himself, running a hand through his dark hair. Come back to me. But words alone wouldn't do. He needed action. The alpha called a meeting of the council, his voice sharp, commanding. We cannot allow her to be taken by the king, he said, forcing his officers to meet his gaze. She belongs to us, to me. We must remind everyone of her ties to this pack, the officers murmured uneasily. The king's presence was already unbalancing, his claim on Kiran undeniable. Any open challenge would risk bloodshed, and the pack had begun whispering in awe of her transformation. No one wanted war with the Silver Claws. Meanwhile, Kiran sensed it all. Even from within the palace walls of the king's domain, her wolf stirred restlessly at the tension spilling from the Midnight Pack. Damien's aura flared in anger and desperation, a stark contrast to the king's calm, predatory presence. That pressed against her every time she moved near him. Her chest tightened. She had expected him to regret, to plead, to grovel, but she hadn't expected the raw, desperate hunger that laced his aura now. Her wolf growled softly, torn. The ex-mate who had destroyed her once still tugged at a part of her heart she had tried to bury. That night, under the moonlight filtering through the palace windows, the king approached her in silence. His golden eyes caught hers, calm but unwavering. They will come for you, he murmured, voice low, like a purr. Your alpha, your past. It will not let you go easily. I know, I whispered, voice trembling slightly despite my resolve. I didn't come back to run, but I don't know how to face him again. Not like this. The king's hand brushed mine, brief, possessive, grounding. You face him like you always have. Strong, fierce, untouchable. My wolf stirred at the warmth, the touch, the certainty in his words. And what if I falter? You won't, he said simply, because I will be at your side, always. I swallowed hard. The slow burn inside me flickered dangerously at the thought of surrender, of trusting him completely, of letting go of the pain Damien had inflicted. But my heart remained wary. 5 years of exile had taught me to survive, to guard myself, to never give anyone full control again. Even so, a small part of me ached for the desire I couldn't ignore, for the pull toward the king, for the undeniable fire igniting between us. Back at the Midnight Pack, Damien's desperation escalated. He confronted wolves who had spoken in admiration of Kiran, reminding them of old traditions, the strength of the alpha's claim. Yet every word seemed hollow against the legend she had become, against the quiet, lethal dominance of the king who had already planted himself as her protector. Night after night, Damien tried again. Letters, secret messages, displays of power, meant to intimidate, but each attempt only reminded Kiran of the choice she now faced. Not one she would make lightly. Her wolf rumbled low. They will fight for you, little wolf, the voice inside whispered. And you will decide who deserves your heart. I clenched my fists, feeling the truth of it in my bones. The alpha, desperate and prideful. The king, patient and dominant. Both drawn to me, both claiming parts of me I hadn't realized were still theirs to claim. And me, I would choose, carefully, because this time, I was not a girl broken by rejection. I was a wolf who would decide her own fate. The moon hung low, silver and cold, casting long shadows across the Midnight Pack grounds. Kiran walked among the familiar paths, now strange under her newfound strength. Wolves whispered as she passed, bowing their heads in awe. She didn't need their approval, but she enjoyed the awareness of her power, the way her presence stirred unease and respect in equal measure. Her wolf stirred, restless. 2 auras burned in her mind tonight, one frantic, desperate, the other calm, magnetic. Impossible to ignore. She had to test them both. Damien appeared first, lurking at the edge of the clearing. His gaze tracked her every step, a predator who had lost his prey. Kiran, he called softly, but she ignored the plea in his voice. He stepped closer. Please, talk to me. Let me explain. You'll explain nothing, she interrupted, her voice icy. I've listened to apologies before. Your words hold no power here. His jaw tightened. Then what will it take? His wolf pressed at the edges of his aura, raw hunger and longing radiating outward. What will it take for you to forgive me? I turned fully toward him, studying the desperation flickering across his face. I let a faint smile curve my lips, not of affection, but challenge. Prove it, I said softly. Not with words, with action. Show me that I matter to you. Show me that you've changed. Damien flinched at the weight of her demand. He had spent 5 years thinking of her, imagining her in danger, in pain, while he did nothing. Now she was standing before him, and she wanted proof, not excuses. Before he could respond, a shadow crossed the clearing. The king. He stepped smoothly, golden eyes on Kiran, aura pressing without violence, a subtle but undeniable claim. I see she is already testing you, he said, voice low, dangerous, yet patient. Do not disappoint her. Damien stiffened, jaw clenching. You will not. Enough. Kiran cut him off, holding up a hand. Her wolf surged in excitement, recognizing the subtle power play. Both of you listen. I am not a prize. I will not be bargained for or fought over. If either of you wishes to prove yourselves, do it the way I've asked, through action, not dominance or words. Understand? The king stepped closer, close enough that the heat from his aura brushed her skin. Understood, he said softly. And if you ever feel in danger, you only need call. I will answer, always. A shiver ran through her body at his promise. Her wolf twitched, sensing the magnetic pull of his presence, the unspoken claim that drew her closer even as her mind resisted. Damien's wolf growled low, anger and jealousy twisting in the air. I'll show you, he growled, voice raw. I'll do whatever it takes to earn you back. Kiran held their gazes evenly, wolf rumbles echoing in her chest. Actions, not promises, she repeated. For the next days, the testing began. Damien followed her closely, attempting subtle gestures to prove he had changed, helping with pack duties, stepping in when danger approached, showing patience he had never possessed before. Yet his desperation was transparent, and she could feel the pull of old scars, the fear of betrayal lingering. The king, in contrast, did not chase or plead. He protected quietly, his presence constant but unobtrusive, a shadow that hovered when danger threatened. His dominance was patient, intoxicating, a slow claim that wrapped around her without suffocating. Each night, when the pack settled, she found herself thinking of them both, the alpha who had thrown her away but now fought desperately, and the king who had entered her life with inevitability and fire. Her heart beat in confused rhythms. Desire and resentment twisted together, a slow burn she could not ignore. One evening, under the moonlight in the palace gardens, the king approached her as she trained alone. His golden eyes held a question, a challenge, and something else, a possessive hunger. Your wolf is restless, he observed. Why do you resist what is already yours? I am not yours, she said firmly, though her pulse betrayed her words. Not yet, he murmured. His gaze lingered, searching, claiming, but you will be, when you are ready. Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to pull away, but the warmth of his presence, the inevitability of his claim, and the quiet power in his voice anchored her in ways Damien never could. And yet, her wolf growled low, remembering the alpha, remembering the past, remembering the fire of their bond even broken. It still lingered. Kiran knew one truth with a clarity that scared her. The slow burn between three hearts was only beginning, and the choice would not be easy. The palace was quiet, the corridors empty, the only light coming from the silver moon spilling through the tall windows. Kiran moved carefully, her senses alert, but she didn't feel the fear she had once known. Instead, her wolf stirred, attuned to the presence she had come to expect. The Lycan King. He was waiting in the private chamber, his silhouette outlined by the moonlight. Golden eyes caught hers as she stepped closer, calm yet commanding, like the world itself bent subtly in his favor. You trained well today, he observed, voice low and smooth, vibrating against her nerves. Your strength has grown. She gave a faint nod, refusing to let him see how much his attention affected her. I've had time to grow, she replied evenly. 5 years outside your reach taught me much. He smiled faintly, the kind that sent shivers through her, soft and dangerous. And yet, even after all that, you are still cautious around me. I am cautious around everyone, she said, though her words wavered slightly. I do not trust easily. He stepped closer, his presence folding around her like a shield. Then let me earn your trust. Slowly, the air between them was thick charged, every step he took drawing a response from her wolf. She could feel the pull, the claim, but the restraint he offered was measured, deliberate, teasing in its patience. Why me? She whispered, more to herself than to him. Why choose me of all wolves? Because you are fierce, he murmured, reaching out to brush a lock of hair from her face. His fingers lingered at her jaw, warm and insistent, sending a shiver racing through her body. Because you are untouchable in ways I cannot resist. Because you have survived everything they threw at you and you stand before me now, unbroken. Her heart stuttered, a wild rhythm she could barely control. Her wolf pressed against his, sensing the pull, the dominance, and the unspoken promise in every gesture. And because, he added softly, leaning just slightly closer, you will not be claimed by anyone who does not deserve you. Not him, not the pack, only me. Her breath caught. She wanted to step back, to remind herself of control, but every instinct, every heartbeat, pulled her forward. The slow burn between them flared hot and bright, coiling low in her belly, making her pulse race. He let his hand drop to rest lightly against hers, brushing fingers with feather-light precision. Rest tonight, he said, voice soft, almost a caress. You will sleep in my chambers, not because I demand it, but because I will not allow anyone else to touch you while the moon watches over us. Her pulse thundered. The king did not demand, he claimed with quiet inevitability. He did not rush, but every movement, every glance, pressed her closer to surrendering in ways she had not known she could. As she began, but her words faltered. Shh, he murmured, golden eyes holding hers. No words, only presence, only trust, only the moonlit night. We will start slow, little wolf. Her wolf rumbled softly, a mix of acknowledgement and anticipation. She nodded, breath shallow, knowing that surrendering did not mean losing herself. It meant beginning to trust, beginning to burn with desire, beginning to see what it meant to be his. And under the silver light of the moon, with the Lycan King at her side, Kiran felt for the first time in years the quiet, intoxicating pull of something inevitable. She was his to protect, he was hers to test. And the slow burn of the nights to come had only just begun. The midnight pack was restless. Damien moved through the halls of his pack house like a storm contained, every step echoing frustration and longing. Wolves whispered behind closed doors, watching their alpha struggle between duty, pride, and the woman he had once thrown away. Kiran is gone, he muttered to himself, fists clenched. And I cannot lose her. Not to him. He had tried diplomacy, subtle gestures, and demonstrations of changed behavior, but the Lycan King's quiet dominance loomed over every attempt. Damien's frustration festered, a shadow that tainted even the familiar halls of his home. He couldn't ignore the truth anymore. She was stronger now, fiercer, unbroken, and she had chosen, not him. Meanwhile, Kiran moved through the king's palace, her wolf in tune with the subtle tensions beyond the walls. The energy of the midnight pack pressed at her senses like a warning. Damien was planning something, she could feel it. His desperation, his longing, the possessive heat of his wolf, all of it reached out to her, a shadow stretching from the past. Her hand brushed the hilt of her dagger, a reflex from years of survival. I will not be pulled back into the storm, she whispered to her wolf. I decide my own path. The Lycan King appeared at her side silently, as if he had materialized from the shadows. His presence was calm, deliberate, yet charged with the same magnetic pull that had marked every private moment they shared. He is restless, he said softly, sensing her thoughts. Do not fear him. He cannot touch you here. I know, she admitted, but his anger, his need, it reaches me anyway. It's like the air itself is heavy with it. That is because he still desires what he cannot have, the king said, voice low, almost amused. And you are not what he is used to controlling. That is why he burns. Let him. It will not sway you, not with me beside you. Her wolf stirred, pressing closer to his side. The subtle warmth of his aura wrapped around her, soothing the tension coiling in her chest. She leaned into it, letting the steady pull of the king's presence center her, even as Damien's shadow lingered in her mind. That night, Damien made his move. He confronted her in the forest outside the midnight pack grounds, a place she had once run with him under the stars. His eyes were dark, a mixture of regret and hunger. Kiran, he said, voice raw, aching. I cannot lose you. Not now. Not ever. I am not yours, she replied, her voice steady but her pulse racing. Not anymore. You were always mine, he growled, stepping closer, wolf surging in desperation. I made a mistake, yes, but I will fix it. I will earn you back. You are still my mate. Her heart tightened, and a low growl escaped her wolf. The past tried to claw its way forward, but she forced herself to remember the nights in the king's palace, the quiet dominance, the patience, the undeniable safety of being beside someone who would not break her. You have your chance, she said firmly. You threw it away. Words are nothing now. Show me if you can. But know this. I will choose freely, and I will not be swayed by desperation or regret alone. Damien froze, the truth hitting him like a blade. She had grown, evolved, become something he could no longer claim with authority alone. His pride, his power, it was not enough. Only action, only genuine change, could earn her back. And as he stood there under the cold moonlight, Kiran realized just how far she had come. No longer the broken Omega, no longer the girl who had begged for love. She was her own wolf, fierce, free, unyielding. The king's warning echoed in her mind. You belong to no one but yourself. Choose when you are ready. Her wolf rumbled softly in agreement. And for the first time in years, Kiran felt truly untouchable. The palace gardens were quiet, bathed in silver moonlight that spilled across the fountain at the center. The air smelled of night-blooming flowers and earth, intoxicating and serene. Kiran walked slowly, hands brushing over the marble edges of the fountain, wolf alert to every sound, every subtle shift in energy. She could feel the weight of the past weeks, the alpha's desperate attempts to reclaim her, the tension in the pack, the quiet but commanding presence of the king. A shadow moved behind the fountain, and she froze, heart racing. I hoped you would come, the Lycan King said softly, stepping into the moonlight. His golden eyes held hers with an intensity that made her chest tighten. I needed air, she said, though her voice was steadier than she felt, and space to think. He stepped closer, the faint warmth of his aura brushing against hers. And what does your wolf say about the chaos surrounding you? I exhaled slowly. It says I cannot run from what I feel or from the choices I must make. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. The contact was light but deliberate, a reminder of his presence, his claim, his patience. The warmth of his fingers sent shivers down my spine, stirring a hunger I had been careful to ignore. Do you trust me? He asked, voice low, vibrating against my senses. I want to, I admitted, my wolf growling softly at the nearness, the tension, the power radiating from him. But trust is not something I give lightly. Not anymore. He nodded, golden eyes never leaving mine. And you shouldn't. That is why I will earn it, not demand it. Slowly, always slowly, I swallowed, feeling the pull in my chest. The slow burn of desire, the lure of his dominance, the quiet safety of his presence, it all pressed against me like the tide. My wolf nudged closer to him instinctively, seeking the protection and warmth I hadn't realized I craved. You are different now, he murmured, voice rougher, stronger, fiercer, untouchable. And yet, he bent slightly, the tip of his nose brushing my hair, the scent of him smoke, pine, something primal wrapping around my senses. You are still mine to protect, mine to guide, and if you allow it. I felt my pulse spike, wolf rumbled low inside me, and I knew I was standing at the edge of something dangerous. If I allow it, I whispered. He smiled faintly, a predator and protector rolled into one. Then you will learn that surrendering to someone who respects your strength does not mean losing yourself. It means choosing where you belong. The words hung in the night, the slow burn between us heating with unspoken promise. I could feel it in every brush of his aura, every measured movement. My wolf pressed against his lightly, curious, eager, alive. I began, but the words faltered as his hand settled lightly over mine, holding, grounding, claiming without aggression. The electricity between us was palpable, magnetic, and my chest tightened as I realized how much I wanted to lean in, to trust him completely, even while my heart remembered Damien's desperate shadow. You are not alone tonight, he whispered. Not now, not ever while I am here, and nothing, no one will take you from me. I nodded, shivering from the closeness, the intensity, the promise. The moonlight cast silver across our intertwined shadows, and for the first time in years, I felt truly untouchable, protected, desired, and free to decide my own path. The slow burn had shifted, deepened. Desire and trust danced together, and though Damien's shadow lingered, I knew the pull toward the king was undeniable. And in the quiet moonlit garden, with golden eyes locking onto mine, I allowed a single truth to echo through me. I was ready to see where this would go. The forest outside the palace was thick with shadows, the moonlight barely piercing the canopy. Kiran moved silently, senses alert, her wolf coiled and ready. Something was coming, she could feel it before she even saw him. Damien emerged from the trees, his eyes blazing with desperation and possessive fire. "Kiran," he called, voice cracking with emotion. "You cannot." Just before he could finish, the Lycan King stepped from the shadows, golden eyes fixed on him, or irradiating controlled but lethal dominance. "Enough," the king said, voice low and dangerous. The air around Damien pressed him back slightly, as if the forest itself recognized the king's authority. "I will not leave her to you," Damien growled, wolf surging in the edges of his aura. "She is mine, always has been, and yet, you abandoned her," the king said quietly, but every word carried the weight of inevitability. "You cast her aside, you rejected her, and now you wish to claim what you no longer have." Damien's jaw clenched. She is not yours," the king interrupted, stepping closer, each movement deliberate, precise, dangerous. "She belongs to no one who would break her, only someone who will honor her strength, her heart, and her will." Kiran stepped forward, between them, wolf growling softly. "Damien," she said, voice steady, "I am not yours to fight over. I am mine. If either of you wishes to be a part of my life, you must earn it. Not by words, not by anger, not by dominance. Only by proving your respect for who I am now." Damien's eyes flickered with pain, longing, and frustration. "And if I do, if I prove I've changed, you will not force me," she said firmly. "I will choose freely. You have 5 years to show me who you are, not who you were." The king's hand brushed hers lightly, possessive but gentle. "And I will wait," he said, golden eyes locking onto hers. "I will be here when you are ready. Always." Damien's wolf growled low, frustration and desire mingling in the air. The tension between the three of them was electric, coiling like storm clouds. "I see now," Damien muttered, voice quieter, "that I may have lost more than I realized. But I will not give up." Kiran exhaled, wolf pressing slightly against the king's side. She felt the heat of the king's protective aura, steady and unyielding, and knew in her heart that no matter what Damien tried, she was no longer the girl who had been abandoned. She was strong, untouchable, and the slow burn of her connection with the king was undeniable. The forest was silent again, except for their breathing, the distant rustle of leaves, and the tension that lingered like a storm yet to break. And in that moment, Kiran realized the truth. The choice she faced would not be easy, but it would be hers freely, fully, and on her own terms. The palace was quiet, the kind of silence that felt alive with anticipation. Kiran entered the king's private chambers, her senses alert, wolf restless yet strangely calm under his presence. The room smelled faintly of pine and firewood, the torches casting soft, dancing shadows across the walls. He was already there, seated in a high-backed chair, golden eyes fixed on her as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. "Sit," he said softly, voice low and commanding without force. "Tonight there is no past, no alpha, no pack. Only us." She hesitated, heart pounding, wolf whispering caution. But the pull of his aura, steady and protective, made her want to obey. She sat, a careful distance away, and he rose, moving closer with quiet grace. "I want to earn your trust," he said, stopping just short of her, the heat of his presence brushing her skin. "Not by words, but by being here, by proving that you are safe with me." Kiran nodded, words failing her. Her wolf nudged against him instinctively, drawn to the calm power, the gentle dominance that did not threaten her autonomy. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering at her jaw. The contact was intimate, careful, deliberate. Her pulse surged, but she remained seated, testing herself, testing him, testing the fire building quietly between them. "You may feel desire," he murmured, voice rougher, almost a growl. "But tonight, we are not bound by it. We are bound by trust. You decide the pace always." She began, then swallowed, feeling the heat of her own pulse. "I want to trust A faint smile curved his lips. Then let me show you. Let me be your anchor. He stepped closer, his aura wrapping around her, warm, steady, protective. Her wolf pressed against him, sensing the pull, the subtle claim, the promise of safety. And though her body yearned, her mind remained alert, aware of the slow burn igniting between them. They spent hours like that, close, intimate, yet not crossing the line of desire into physicality. Words were few, touches careful, and every gesture was charged with unspoken understanding. Each brush of his hand, each shift in his stance, taught her to relax into his presence without surrendering control. At one point, he leaned slightly, resting a hand over hers, golden eyes locking onto hers. "You are safe," he whispered. "Here. With me. No one can hurt you. Not now, not ever." While I draw breath, her wolf rumbled softly, acknowledging him, and she allowed herself to lean into the warmth, feeling the slow burn of longing and trust entwined. As the night deepened, she realized something profound. The king's claim was not about possession. It was about partnership, protection, and respect. It was about showing her that desire and safety could coexist, and that surrendering to him did not mean losing herself. And when dawn finally crept over the horizon, bathing the room in pale gold, Kiran knew. Her heart was opening, slowly, cautiously, to the possibility of love again. She had survived the past. She had tested both wolves, and tonight, she had begun to trust the one who had proven that desire could be gentle, protective, and unwavering. The slow burn had deepened, and for the first time, Kiran allowed herself to imagine a future where she did not have to fight alone. The Midnight Pack's territory felt tense, every wolf uneasy under the storm of Damien's emotions. He had spent weeks testing Kiran, chasing her approval, fighting for the bond he had once abandoned. But patience was no longer enough. Tonight, he would act. Tonight, he would demand an answer. Kiran sensed him before he arrived, the raw desperation in his aura, the possessive fire that had once been intoxicating, now sharpened with regret. Her wolf growled softly, a low warning. "You cannot do this," she whispered to herself. "Not here. Not now. I am not the girl you left behind." Damien appeared at the edge of the clearing, eyes burning, jaw tight, stance commanding as alpha should. "Kiran," he said, voice steady but edged with pain. "I have tried to prove myself. I have changed. I am the one who should stand beside you, not him, not anyone else." "You're wrong," Kiran said, her voice clear, cutting through the tension. "I am not yours to claim. You had your chance, Damien. You lost it." Her wolf surged at the edges of her aura, coiling like steel. "I decide who I am with," she continued, eyes meeting his. "Not pride, not desperation, not fear. Only I choose where my heart belongs." Damien's fists clenched. "You cannot push me aside. We are mates." "And yet," she said, stepping closer, golden eyes sharp and unwavering, "you rejected me first. I survived your betrayal, your neglect, your exile. You cannot demand my heart now. You must earn it or lose it." He faltered, the truth of her words striking deeper than any wound he had suffered in battle. His wolf growled, low and frustrated, but Kiran's presence remained. Unshaken, she was not afraid. She was untouchable, strong, whole. From the shadows, the Lycan King stepped forward, golden eyes burning with quiet power. His aura pressed outward, protective and commanding, yet measured, calm, and unwavering. "She has spoken," the king said, voice low, rumbling with authority. "Your actions alone will determine if she ever chooses you. I will not interfere, but I will protect what is mine to guard." Damien's jaw tightened, the storm of emotion in him barely contained. "This isn't over," he muttered, stepping back. "I will not give up. You will have no choice," Kiran replied firmly. "Because this time, I decide, and I choose to protect myself first before any mate, before any alpha, before anyone who would claim me without proving they deserve me." Her wolf rumbled softly, a low vibration of affirmation. She was untouchable, unbroken, and ready to claim her own destiny. Damien turned and left, his desperation trailing behind him like a storm cloud. Leaving Kiran standing in the moonlit clearing with the Lycan King at her side, he stepped closer. "Aura warm, protective, irresistible. You are brave tonight," he murmured. "Your strength, it is yours, and yours alone." And yet, she looked up at him, heart racing. "And yet, even the strongest wolf," he said, voice low and intimate, "deserves someone who sees her entirely, who honors her heart and her strength." That wolf is mine to protect, Kiran. A shiver ran through her. Her wolf pressed against him, acknowledging him as protector, as mate, as partner. Desire and trust intertwined, slow burning, steady, undeniable, and Kiran finally understood. The past could not touch her anymore. She had survived, she had grown, and her heart was ready to choose. Tonight, under the silver light of the moon, she allowed herself to lean into the pull, into the safety, into the slow burning fire that was theirs alone. She was free, she was fierce, and she was finally ready to love again. The palace felt alive in a way it hadn't before. Soft winds rustled through the open windows, carrying the scent of jasmine and earth. Kiran walked beside the Lycan King, her step steady, wolf calm, heart racing in anticipation. The events of the past weeks had tested her, pushed her, challenged her to confront every fear, every scar, every lingering desire. She stopped beneath the moonlight spilling across the courtyard, golden eyes meeting his. She began, breath trembling slightly. I've made my choice. He tilted his head, lips curving faintly. And what is it, little wolf? Her hand found his, grasping it firmly. I choose you, she said, voice strong yet soft. Not because of power, not because of protection, not because of desire alone, but because you honor all of me, my strength, my past, my wolf. You see me completely, and I trust you completely. His wolf rumbled low in approval, aura wrapping around her like a shield. Then nothing will stand between us, he murmured, voice thick with quiet fire. No alpha, no pack, no past, only us. For the first time, Kiran allowed herself to lean into him fully, feeling the warmth of his presence, the security of his dominance tempered with respect. The slow burn of desire finally allowed space to breathe. The next days were filled with subtle moments of closeness, training sessions that ended in stolen touches, moonlit walks where fingers brushed and hearts raced, quiet conversations where trust deepened and laughter echoed. Damien's presence faded like a storm receding, leaving only the certainty of the bond she had chosen. Her wolf stretched, fully aligned with hers, sensing the change. She was no longer the broken Omega who had once been cast aside. She was a fierce, untouchable wolf who had survived betrayal, claimed her power, and chosen love on her own terms. The Midnight Pack gradually accepted her return not as an Omega, but as a wolf of strength and legend. Damien remained, but his desperation had cooled to respect. Kiran's decision had shifted the balance. The Lycan King stood at her side during every encounter, quiet yet commanding, a protective shadow that never smothered. Together, they walked through the territory, showing unity and strength. Damien, finally understanding he could not force her heart, stepped back with grace, silently acknowledging her choice. The love triangle had resolved not through conquest, but through Kiran's unwavering self-respect. Under a harvest moon, the king and Kiran shared a private moment of trust and intimacy, slow burn desire still simmering beneath the surface. Words were few, touches careful, each glance loaded with promise. I will always protect you, he whispered, voice low and intimate. And you will always have your freedom. But together, we are stronger than anything the world can throw at us. She pressed her forehead to his, wolf purring softly. I trust you, she said simply. The packs gathered for a ceremony celebrating Kiran's return not as the Omega they had scorned, but as a wolf of power, courage, and choice. The king stood proudly at her side, golden eyes watching every motion, or irradiating calm dominance. Damien approached one last time, bowing his head in silent acknowledgement. You are her wolf, he said to the king, and she has chosen wisely. Kiran smiled softly, heart light. I have. The moon hung high, casting silver across the courtyard as Kiran and the Lycan King stood together, hands entwined, wolf hearts aligned. I am yours, she murmured, voice trembling with quiet desire. And I am free, and I am yours, he replied, golden eyes locking onto hers. Now and always, they stepped closer, the world narrowing to the soft pull between them. Desire simmered, trust deepened, and the slow burn that had begun months ago finally allowed itself to flourish. Her wolf rumbled, fully aligned with her heart. She had survived exile, betrayal, and the pull of two powerful men. She had claimed her strength, her independence, and her love on her own terms, and under the silver light of the moon, Kiran and the Lycan King finally embraced the destiny They had been building toward all along, fierce, untouchable, and bound by choice, love, and the slow burning fire that was theirs alone. The past was gone. The storm had passed, and Kiran's heart, strong, free, and untouchable, had found its home.